Hello, everyone, and welcome to the regular sounding edition of Weekly Manga Recap here on May the 17th of 2018. No deep voice, no audio cuts. We're all good, right? No technical difficulties. Please say yes. I'm getting impatient with all this.
Hello there, Nick. It's me, your new best friend, low voice Chris co-host.
You sound completely normal, and
Fuck. Oh wait. Or Nick, it's your good but lower voice British co-host Chris I am.
I'm sure that no one will be offended by that.
Well, the Brits
maybe not offended. Offended isn't the right word, but like disgusted and appalled.
Embarrassed.
I think the thought is a British accent.
Nick, I'm discovering a couple things about myself over this past week.
Okay.
So one thing I discovered is I'm actually really good in a crisis, which was not what I was kind of expecting. But so recently at the movie theater, I don't want to dig too much into building this character of a person, one of my coworkers, for you. I'll simply say he's somebody who's a bit socially awkward.
Okay.
And he has trouble starting conversations in that he just begins them. And that's fine. I totally understand it. However, he's going to have this conversation. Whether you want to or not.
Oh, God.
He is going to have this conversation. And he tends to often bring up conversation topics that are strange or dark. Like, one of the first interactions I had with him, he walked by, he's like, bad news, guys. There's a bunch of kids in Parkland who are dead. It's like, I mean, thank you. This is a depressing, like, news update, though.
It just comes in as like, this is your depressing news update.
But then sometimes he'll walk by and he's like, the movie theater, or not the movie theater, the hotel chain nearby changed its name again. And I'm like, do you have stock with them? Or like, what's the connection that makes me want to engage in this conversation? But the other day he continued to come by and he kept bringing up that there was this huge storm coming. Big storm. Massive. Probably every 30 minutes or so he'd come by with some new update of it. It's over this county now. It looks like it's going to go over here. It's huge. All this stuff. So we go through the day, and I can't begin to tell you how much I don't like talking about the weather generally, but I certainly don't like to talk about it when it's just weather that might happen too. When it's just like, we may get crazy rain or everything like that. I'm just like,
or it might be perfectly fine. It's hard to predict these things.
Yeah. And I give a cursory like, oh wow, it's crazy, but I don't engage, and that's like my general philosophy with that. So you get to like the end of the day, and it's clearly getting really dark outside. Like the storm clearly looks like it's about to hit us. So our manager comes by and he's like, hey, so let me tell you guys what to do in case like the power goes out, because if our projectors go out, people are gonna wonder what's happened. Keep people in the theaters, you know, we don't want to cause, like, we don't know a bunch of people coming outside, getting confused, all this sort of chaos things goes on. So tell people to stay in their theaters. We're going to get the movie right back on, everything like that. Totally get it.
Sure.
Storm starts hitting, and it is a ridiculous storm. This is an old theater, so you hear everything. There's, like, golf ball-sized pieces of hail. There is just rain coming down. Wind is, like, moving cars a little bit. Pretty bad storm. And this is where I found out I was good into crisis, because even as everything's happening around here, I'm like, okay, you know, guys, stay calm. If you were in a movie and it's shut off, stay in your theater. There's, you know, our managers are working around to get the movies right back on for you. So just go in there. And if you just got out of a movie, I'd advise you don't go outside right now. It's kind of dangerous out there. You don't want to go out there. The other guy who's been talking about this storm all fucking day, as though to, like, the fucking Chicken Little, who was just like, the sky is falling, has now decided to just sit behind me as this is happening. He's the usher, by the way, so he's the predominant one who should be like guiding people, to stand behind me and scream, it's a tornado warning, it's a tornado warning, over and over again. And I was like, first, everyone here knows it's a tornado warning because it comes onto our fucking phones. It's like an Amber Alert. They warn you.
Yeah.
2, I'm not shouting it's a tornado warning because I know what the immediate answer to a tornado warning, like, throw out there is. Okay, what do we do? And the answer to that is go inside your theater and hope the roof doesn't fall on you because we're not a bomb shelter. There's no safety measures in course here. So the entire time I'm like calming people down. I'm getting people back to their theater. Like all this hubbub is dying down. He's just behind me like, hey, guys, it's a tornado warning. And I'm just like, you fucking cocksucker, shut up. And our manager told us to like make sure people like come out to like guide them back to theaters. So specifically, we get a call over the walkie that says, hey, all of our high sides down. So essentially, like our theater is split into two halves, like 1 through 7, and then the other side is the high side. So we hear high sides theaters or projectors all went down. So obviously, the piece of logic to go into is like, well, everybody from that side of the theater is going to start coming out to wonder what's going on. So let's preemptively stop that by having our usher go wait in front of there. Instead, I see people already coming out of that lobby, and he is fucking behind me, showing people on his phone pictures of his parents' lawn and all the hail pieces they're on it. And I'm just standing there like, you fucking monster! Go tell people to stay in the theaters!
Yeah, it's really bad out there. Check it out.
I was like, I've never wanted to punch a person so bad in my life, but... Anyway, I found out I have a really bad temper, too, because it was like, by the end of it, I was like, go stop these people from coming out here!
That's totally normal, I think, Chris.
You have, like, 3 years of seniority in me in this place, and I'm still the one who's just like, what are you doing?
Oh, my God. I'm glad that I don't know as many weird people as you do, Chris.
I gather them together, like the Force, except it's just attracting people who are generally poor influences into my life.
Oh my God. Once I no longer work in my current job, I'm going to start sharing some weird stories about this one guy I had to work with. All right. Right, let's move on then. It's on that note of people who are bad at handling disasters. Let's head into the superhero manga. Hooray! My Hero Academia. Chapter number... why did you go blank a bit? Okay. Chapter number 182. Let It Flow. School Festival. This is one hell of a jam-packed chapter, Chris. There is so much in terms of, like, just details that go on. Like, you could very easily sum up this chapter by just saying, Class 1A puts on the concert. It is a huge success. And that would be the end of it. But there are so many details thrown in, and there are so many little moments that get highlighted that literally Horikoshi bit off more than he could chew, because I think for the first time ever for My Hero Academia, is incomplete art.
I think it's happened before, but I don't think we've ever had it to quite this extent, because there are almost entire pages that are unfinished. And there's one panel where there's basically just like the initial circle sketches for where heads would be. It's an audience shot, so no one's really going to give a fuck, but it was definitely... Bad. And
there's just so much that happens that I literally just think that he tried to do too much and could not keep up with the demand he placed on himself. I'm sure that it is also a possibility that, you know, there was something else going on, but literally if it were just like, I tried to draw 300 different panels for this one chapter and it turns out I can't do that, then I would not be shocked.
Which is, you know, we've mentioned before, and it's sort of a well-known thing. Being a mangaka is an excruciatingly demanding job. So perhaps this was too ambitious of a amount of content to put into it of different artwork, but it might also just be that Horikoshi had something else going on at some point, or something that kind of delayed him, you know, whatever it is. Yeah, there's a lot of unfinished art, but you know, there's a lot of art that is finished and is absolutely incredible. So
it's a great chapter, don't get me wrong. I just want to like put that out and just get out of the way. It's like, there's a lot of incomplete art in this chapter. It's still amazing.
And remember, this art's almost always, I don't think there's ever been a case where it's not, where it gets fixed up when it gets an official volume release too.
So I'm not going to try and go over every single thing that happens page by page, because there's too much. But the majority of the chapter is the concert going on, although we actually begin with, hey, let's catch you up. Remember, you know, Deku it looked like he wasn't going to arrive on time. And then he was there just in time. He was just very sweaty and scruffy looking. And it turns out that towards the end of the previous chapter, when Ayama was kind of going, I wonder where Midoriya is. Turns out he had a pretty good idea of it, because he actually meets Ectoplasm and Deku outside as he's rushing in. And he's like, hey, come on, let's go. We've got to get to the concert just because everyone's waiting. Although Ectoplasm takes a minute to make sure to go, hey, clean up a little. You look very dirty.
You're a disgusting pig.
Oh, Dad! But he makes a really, really good point, which was just like, hey, if people are, worried about what the hell happened to you, then they're not going to be able to enjoy it themselves. So just go get yourself cleaned up. You've got time, And then we get a bit of the, just like the stage is dark, ready for everything to open up. And I like that we get the details. There's, a bit of a pan over the crowd. Shows us Aizawa and Present Mike are both there. And each of them has a little caption to explain why they're there. And Aizawa says he's chaperoning Eri. That's why he's there. Present Mike says he's shirking his patrol duties. He's not supposed to be.
He's just like, fuck it.
We get a bit of a reminder that, hey, there's a bunch of people in the crowd who was like, Class 1A, causing all this trouble for us. They're just being selfish with this whole thing. Whatever. But whatever. Who cares? They're just going to put on this performance because they're selfish assholes. And then we get everything starting up. Bakugo's drums are apparently explosion resistant because he starts setting off explosions as he plays. Bang kicks in. And everyone starts dancing.
What is the best song that they decide to start playing? Like, because I see the keyboard in my mind can't fucking not go with Take On Me. Like, all the extra drum solos, and it's just like...
What's that song that plays for fucking... Oh gosh, I've completely forgotten everything about that movie.
What movie?
One there where no one's allowed to dance.
Oh, the Footloose.
Footloose. What's the song that goes? It's just Footloose, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got loose, Footloose. To get my Sunday shoes. Or whatever.
Yeah, you got it.
Everyone knows that song starts off with...
Yeah. It starts off with the train of explosions. It was actually at the time one of the most expensive movie of all time, simply because of all the explosions they had to set off for the various takes of the song. It was very dangerous.
Every time that they had to restart the choreography, they set off new explosions.
They demolished 7 churches because of that song.
Every time that they danced the church into rubble, like they actually had to dance a church into rubble. Yeah.
It was brutal. Kevin Bacon, he hasn't been on the record as saying that it was as dangerous for the Stooges as it was, but he's just being modest. It was terrifying.
Not to mention there were all the religious groups that were very upset about the churches being demolished via dancing. So.
Yeah, and they actually then turned it into a realistic Footloose where they're like, no more dancing movies. We can't have any more of this dancing movies destroying all of our churches.
Or maybe with all the pyro starting off the song, maybe it's a WWE entrance theme.
That is true. This is like Randy Orton coming out. Exactly.
Anyway.
It's like Undertaker at that one Survivor Series where he caught fire and had to stand in the elimination chamber with like 3rd degree burns.
And then wrestled for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Kyoka greets the audience, and everyone on the stage is dancing. A few of them are thinking about how important it is that they do this for Eri. Meanwhile, Tokoyami is playing his guitar, and it's like, must make it grittier for the darkness. Then they get ready for the start of all of their stunts, and Deku tosses Aoyama up into the air, where he is caught by Ojiro. I think that's Ojiro. It's a little hard to tell with the sketches. And they start doing all of their insane shit. And it turns out it's not just like, oh, we have like, this whole stage thing that we're going to do with a few people. No, almost everyone uses their quirks in this show to some extent or another. Even the people playing instruments are doing stuff. Bakugo is using his explosions. Tokoyami has summoned Dark Shadow. I don't know what the hell exactly he summoned it for, but he summoned Dark Shadow. And they're using their quirks, to change the stage lighting and stuff. Todoroki is using his quirk to create all these ice platforms. Bakugo, as things kick into high gear, commands everyone to knock him dead because here's the hook, you doofs.
I feel like this was a really big moment of breaking, of like immersion breaking for Bakugo, because I can't imagine Bakugo, who screams at the top of his lungs all day, who is nothing but like the personification of like a violent, angry 12-year-old, to use the word doofs unironically. Like, that had to have been like changed over, like it was just like,
you motherfuckers.
Yeah, it had to be like, you cucks in the original version. You're like,
let's just make sure,
style it back a little bit.
The mildest thing we can think of.
Like, their original pass was just like, here's the hook, you fucking ass munching fart fairies. And they were just like, what about doofs instead? They're like, yeah, it's less letters to have to put on the page.
Oh. So the next big stunt thing that they do is Sue uses her tongue to swing Uraraka out over the audience, and she slaps Vi with a bunch of people in the crowd to cause them to float up into the air. Then also people are getting thrown out over the audience as well. Sato and fucking bugs. Sato and Shoji just throw some of the performers out, including Kaminari, so that he can play mid-air guitar, because why not? They also have apparently taken safety precautions, because they're like, to make sure that nobody gets hurt, let's anchor them down with some of Sero's tape.
Yeah, tape. That'll keep you from having to worry about like the floating chaos going on around us.
Meanwhile, as all of this insanity is going on, dancers in midair, you going on ice platforms to dance. Sending Kirishima is pouring diamond dust over everything. During the midst of all of this, Ida is stuck doing the robot.
I do appreciate that, like, someone even calls attention to, like, look at this one dude doing the robot.
He's super into it too, because it's just like, yeah.
He's super pumped about this robot, man. He's like, you guys don't understand. There was a whole side arc where the manga is never going to get to about Ida practicing the robot by like studying. He's like, I lived as a robot for a week and a half, mastering their movements with absolute diligence. I have become the robot.
I shall become the next Joker this way, because you have to method act to become the Joker.
They cut to him during it, and it was just him sitting outside a bunch of trash cans with a notebook and pens, like, interesting. Someone's like, no, that's not.
Mineta gets his harem spot. Good for you. I like how that's like the one part of this page that is in sketch. It's like, whatever, fucking Mineta. Then we get to one of two kind of emotional points during the chapter, because we get a flashback from Jiro's perspective from when she actually told her parents that she was going to shoot for becoming a superhero. Because apparently the reason why she knows how to play all these instruments and stuff is because she was actually basically, her parents are both musicians, and so she seemingly was just kind of, for most of her life up until this point, because she seems like it's like just before she entered into UA, trained to become a musician. But her parents were right away, it's like, hey, don't be upset, we're not disappointed in you, you should do what you want, and the only reason why we went into music is because that's what we loved. Uh-huh. At first it was just because it was cool, it was fun, and we were good at it, but the longer that we went into it, the more we realized the music we made could actually do something for others. And in that sense, music and heroism aren't so different. And Jiro is now continuing that sort of legacy by using the music to make people feel better. And even the cocks in the audience who are just like, I guess doing this for their unselfish reasons. Oh, it's so fun! I know this wasn't a Jiro arc. I'll take it, though.
You got your Jiro arc. It was just...
I got my Jiro. Okay.
It was split in the middle by like 8 chapters of something else.
I'll just pretend that all that stuff with Gentle Improv didn't happen and just be like, well, that was a really short Jiro arc, wasn't it? But at least it happened.
Yeah.
I do also like because she kind of just gets super into it and is clearly improvising something either on guitar and or vocals. And so Bakugo has a flashback to when Jiro was like scolding him. He was like, don't improvise anything. You know, you're just going to go crazy. And Bakugo is just meanwhile just like, fucking hypocrite. And finally out in the audience, Eri, you know, still perched up on Mirio's shoulders. And Mirio realizes that she's thrown her arms up in excitement. She's like, yay! And he's like, are you guys watching? She's smiling. She's really smiling. And the shadow of Overhaul has been thrown off of her. Aw.
It's a very cute little image there.
I'm not gonna even like bother to like, you know, keep anyone in suspense. Like, this is my chapter of the week. This is a wonderful chapter with a lot of great details thrown into it, a lot of really good feel good moments, and I think that it probably exceeds expectations that a lot of people had about how this was going to pan out. Like, how do you make it like, oh, you know, it's a concert with dancing? You seem incredibly like insane, but well. If you have people floating through midair while icy platforms go around them and there's a midair electric guitar and some dude just stuck doing the robot, then that's it.
Yeah, it definitely went over the top, and that's the best way to kind of go for it. It really it pulled out all the stops. You know, it's unfortunate that we couldn't get all the finished art in it because it was a little distracted at times when you're like really into it and then you get to a panel that's unfinished. But it pulled out a lot of really cool stops, and I love the imagery at the end with Eri, you know, throwing off the shackles of Overhaul's ghost, essentially.
Yeah. It's really adorable. Yeah. Okay. It's hard to find things to critique about this chapter, so let's just move on. Food Wars, Shokugeki no Soma, 262, Song of Hope. Oh, it's a pity that this happened in the same week as the My Hero Academia chapter, because this is also a really good one. This would probably be my chapter of the week otherwise. So, pretty much exactly what we predicted was going to happen at the end of the last chapter happens in this chapter. Azami can't control... He's denying that he enjoyed Erina's ramshackle dish, but the gifting... He cannot hide the gifting as gradually throughout the arena, people on the floor are just like having their clothing just whipped off of them.
What I particularly love is because a lot of times we just cut over as their clothes like shoots off, but there's one panel later on where we see what's her name, Hisako, and she's like, I'm her friend, and like she looks over to Hisako, and then Hisako's like, Kya! She bends backwards and her clothes have just shot off her body, and like this is like their Super Saiyan, except instead of growing like the blonde hair, their clothes just eject off their body like that.
Also, a weird detail is that all of the clothes are vaporized except for the jackets for the people on the council, in which case the jacket just is discarded off of them.
Well, that's because they're going to need to give their... No, I guess they don't. The jacket's not actually the position. Like,
no.
Yeah.
I think that it is just supposed to be symbolic of Azami's like influence over them being torn off.
Or it's just his way of being like, their clothes flew off, so I'll draw their jacket. But then I'm going to spend a lot more time drawing the sexy underwear underneath.
Well, I'll talk about that in a second. I do like the detail that's like the big reveal on the first page. You know, it's always like, it's just a jacket floating in midair. But yeah, I have to say, guys, you're going to a cooking competition. What is with all this weird ass underwear you're wearing? Like, wear something comfortable. come on, all this lace and ribbons and stuff, all these frills. The only one of the girls wearing anything remotely normal is Momo. And she's like wearing very kitty kind of underwear. Like every other girl whose underwear you see in this chapter, it has lace and frills and ribbons on it. Even Rindo, who was cooking. Like, that's not something comfortable to wear if you're going to, like, slave over a stove, okay?
Maybe it is, Nick. Have you ever tried cooking in garter belts and a lacy bra?
You don't know me, Chris.
Maybe it's amazing. I don't know. You know, I can only speak from my own experience. And I don't really know. Maybe it is better. Maybe lace is really good at like helping you breathe and like help withstand the heat. I don't know.
Oh. It's not. I guess it's not a matter of like specifically the temperature so much as like you've got to do a lot of moving around, and you want to keep all that stuff in place. Is all I'm saying.
What's interesting to me is that every girl decided to coordinate match her underwear and bra, which, from my experience, is a very rare thing. Like you not really that much time put into it. I remember on the Infamous Planet, I was playing Life is Strange. There's a scene where like the two girls go to like take a dip in the pool, and he was mortified that one of them was wearing like ill-matchy bra and panties. He's like, this is so wrong. Just like, you know, it's not like socks where it's like, well, they came in this set, you won't use them like this.
You're allowed to mix and match when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah. So sorry, what else happened in this chapter?
So
a bunch of underwear.
So yes, lingerie no soma. It's there's also, fuck's sake, my fucking browser froze. The other stuff that's going on during all of this is that basically Zombie is in denial. I love that he even has like, my body cannot deny. He says, my mind says to reject this, but my body, is it implying that some part of me recognizes this as delicious? Yes, your tongue, the part of your body that enjoys food. But he's still in denial, you know, shouting at Erina, saying, it's like, no, you don't understand what you've done. You know, the chefs of the world will lose their guiding compass, their protective garden. They will again be condemned to wander aimlessly through the harsh wilderness alone. And Hisako is like, no, you don't understand. You know, those around us are continually pressing forward, growing, learning, and moving onward. Doesn't that in of itself give us the courage to take that first step ourselves? And so I was like, who are you to say such a thing? You, a lowly servant of the Nakiri family. And Hisako says, I'm not just Miss Erina's aide. I'm also her friend. I like how Erina doesn't really have a response to that. She just goes, Hisako. But you could very well just say after, it's like, okay, you know, let's not jump to conclusions here. I'm just going to keep you at arm's length.
Friend is a strong word that I would like to pull back. Acquaintance.
Cohort.
Classmate. We are both classmates. I like that.
Live-in maid.
Servant. Slave is a bit strong, but I would not be opposed to slave.
Luggage donkey.
Luggage mail. Caddy. You are very much my caddy.
Human pet. Oh, wait. No, I guess guys get into an entirely different fetish. Let's just get away from that. But Erina does agree with the majority of what Hisako says. You know, saying like, look, you know, the chefs who hold different views and different values, who cook with different goals than I do. It was only because of my interactions with them that I could create this dish. Meeting those you call contaminated is what transformed everything. They are the greatest spice cooking has to offer me. And my dessert is Froze's tears, and my main dish is her warm love.
Fuck, I don't know that.
Still fuck out, Erina. So Azami, of course, is still not convinced by this. He rants on. I was like, no, this is what broke Saiba. You know, that lack of being satisfied. It's that caused him to become broken. He even like reaches out to Tsukasa, like, you understand me, don't you, Tsukasa? You agree with me? And Tsukasa just kind of like, I don't fucking know, man. That was really fucking delicious. He doesn't really say anything. He just go like, I just had to pull my clothes back on. Azami proclaims that peace is what brings happiness to chefs, the calm certainty of the Eden I was building for them. But Soma says, hey, you know, maybe you should stop telling people what they should think happiness is, you know? Because I don't really know Erina's story all that well. I only heard about it recently. But hey, when he met Mom, my dad was happy. I know that much for certain. And Azami's like, what? No, he couldn't be happy. I saw him break. Once people are sad once, they can never be happy again. Just because I haven't seen him for 20 years, I know what his life was like.
He was sad one time. That means he's sad forever.
Like, listen, Azami, I know that, like, depression's, like, a thing, and it sticks with you for a long time, but that's not necessarily how it works, and you don't, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple days a week I could do things.
Depression is a bad thing, and people who have, like, depression, like, actual depression, it will stick with them, like, forever, even when they're actually happy. But that's also different from, like, he overdid himself once and had to leave a very, like, bad environment. Maybe it was just not right for him. It's like, you know, with professional athletes. Like, sometimes they really should not be in that lifestyle. And they just, it's very bad for them. But a lot of them tend to actually thrive in it. So, anyway. But they should also still have a better union. I love how Azami realizes as more and more people get half naked, no, the gifting, all the energy it's releasing is running out of places to escape.
Everyone's almost naked.
No, they can't strip any more people. It's going to...
It's gonna devour me whole. Oh wait, no! I just knocked my clothes off. Oh, I was really terrified about that.
Zombie's ripped, apparently, by the way.
Everyone in this series is fucking ripped. There's a series about people who eat all day, and there's like one fat character
who got thin for a while.
Yeah.
Too. So the MC doesn't even bother for the judges to make their proclamation because she's just like, yeah, so the results are obvious here.
She's like, so... tie?
Erina thinks to herself, you know, it's like, I have become a different chef, a different person. And someone's like, hey, you've already swiped all of my catchphrases and stuff. Why not use the last catchphrase in my arsenal? And Erina's like, what? No, that one's lame, though.
It's like... But you did it already. You already stole it once.
No, I didn't.
I was like, yeah, you did. And the only other time you cooked in this series, you used it as well. It was like 3 months ago, but it wasn't that long ago.
I do like how what Soma says is encouraging her to do it, which is like, hey, who else could close this out but our captain? It's like, oh, that's kind of sweet. And Erina... So as they're declared the winners, the resistance, Erin is like, happy to serve. And she also does it while whipping her hair tie off, the same way that Soma whips off his headband. It would probably be a lot more impressive if 3 of the 8 members of this group weren't covering their shame.
Well, one of them's intentionally doing it because he's a fucking animal. The other 2 were unwillingly disrobed.
Poor Megami, she looks so like I'm happy, but
Takumi is enjoying it a little too much. Like nothing mentality is just like, check me out, ladies. Hey, look at me, look at my Agumba over here.
I actually took off the underwear underneath the towel and just going to freeball it all the time now.
This will be my new thing.
I did like this conclusion. Yes. I think that this arc certainly had its ups and downs. It probably went on too long, honestly.
Oh god, yeah. This arc went on for about 3 years. When you take everything involving the rebellion and put it all together.
Just this stretch of it honestly went on for too long.
It was a year or so, I think, about that.
So, that said, I did really like this conclusion. This final round, I think, hit basically every note that it was supposed to hit. And you got to see that, hey, yeah, Erina really changed over the course of 250 fucking chapters. And I do definitely get the impression, especially because we haven't heard anything saying contrary, that this series is going to proceed onwards from this point. But if this were like actually the final arc, it's like, okay, at least it goes out on a strong note. But that said, there's so many characters that got the shaft in this arc that didn't get to do anything, that were summarily pushed to the side, whether it was during the first, round of testing, whether it was Megami has to just lose to Momo now, so she doesn't get to do anything. That I really am hoping is like, okay, let's just get things back to normal, continue onward, continue to show the progress of these characters from this point onward. And hey, maybe some of the people from the Polaris Storm will also get to do stuff. Who knows?
Or even just like the side characters like Hayama and Alice and just like Kurokiba, like those characters who were noted to be big ones. Particularly Alice is still one that bothers me, that she has easily the closest relation to Erina outside of like arguably like Hisako and Soma, like themselves, and she plays almost no role in this despite being like built up as one of the better students in Tatsuki. So it was a little disappointing that she didn't have anything, especially when she made kind of a big deal about being a Defiant member. She's probably the big one I wish we had like gotten in place of like Takumi, who he built himself up to be a bit more interesting than he was before, but still, you're kind of just like, I didn't really care that much about you getting another shot. But, I mean, we could nitpick this thing, I think, for a million years. At this point, there's plenty of stuff to be disappointed by. I'm going to choose instead to kind of just embrace the fact that it's over and take it as what it is. And I'm immensely satisfied that this did end on the right note. This could have easily been fucked up completely and ended with Soma delivering the final blow to Azami, and it ended on his whole big note, but it ended with Erina having the big final, like, fuck you moment, and I think that is absolutely the right decision.
There's people in the chat who are complaining like this could have been accomplished on a much smaller scale, and I do agree.
Oh, yeah.
That said, this stuck the landing at least. I would be much more unhappy with this if this had a lame conclusion. It's one of those things that manga gives you is like, hey, if the ending is good at least, then it goes a long way to forgive some of the shortcomings of the arc. So, and honestly, I'm glad that things will hopefully get back to normal to some degree. All right. Let's move on then to talking about the jumpstart that we got this week. Momiji no Kisetsu, which is another series about shogi, the Japanese kind of variation on chess. Or is it Chinese variation? I forget. There's a lot to go through in this chapter, so I'm going to basically just summarize it. Basically, our main character is Momiji. His older brother was this huge ace shogi player, very, very, very popular and well-regarded. And he had this incredible, insane offensive style that would overwhelm people. But all of a sudden, he died because he was dealing with an illness. And he basically dropped dead while playing shogi one time. So Momiji is trying to carry on his brother's legacy by basically becoming the king of games. He's trying to gain the rank of Dragon King, like this legendary top rank in shogi, which it's similar to, like if you remember Hikaru no Go, there are different ranks of professional players, and there's a lot of ceremony surrounding it. And Momiji specifically trying to gain this rank by carrying on the same style that his brother would use, which came to be known as the Sakura style. Like Sakura blossoms would cascade over the board in a tremendous onslaught. Thing is, Momiji is not very good. He keeps on getting eliminated early in tournaments. He is well behind where his brother was at this age. He can't even qualify to take the exam to become a professional player. One day, there is this popular uprising star named Chio. She has been making the rounds in the news and stuff because she's the first ever professional woman player. And she just shows up in Momiji's bathtub one day. There's a lot. She has this like constant like. It's really weird because she shows up naked in his bathtub because he doesn't know that she's going to be staying with their family for a little bit. It's just dropped on him out of the blue, and Ichi's like, "Hey, Momiji, become my pupil so that you can become the strongest shogi player and become the Dragon King." And he's like, "What? Well, you would be wasting your time on me." And she's like, "Oh, really? You don't want to become my pupil?" Hey, everyone! This guy saw me naked. Basically threatens to like have him thought of as a fucking pervert who's gonna have the police called on him. It's like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yes, let's become. I'll become your apprentice. Sure, just please stop. It's honestly my least favorite aspect of her, and I really hope that if the series is going to continue on, that we get more of her character than just like she's the love interest / vehicle for the fan service, so that boys will read this series.
Well, I do think there was a good amount of character to her. I think that was maybe an not over the top, maybe a too far example of her. She's very much a very teasing kind of like, very almost like Asumi from We Never Learned, where she's kind of a shit stirrer. Like she's constantly teasing this guy throughout the entire thing because she'll constantly just be like, "You suck. Like that was a terrible move. You blow ass. No one likes you." She'll say these things, but she always does it with like a grin on her face or something like that. Like she seems like she's genuinely somebody who likes him. So I think that was just meant to be her being a teasing way of being like, I'll push you out that way. But I could see how it would be obnoxious. Because I'll admit, just first off, I thought the series was awful when I first read it. Like the first like 10 or so pages, like 15 or so pages, I was just not into it at all. It was boring the shit out of me. But the series, I think, in this first chapter builds a lot towards that end.
Yeah, and she keeps on saying, like, all right, you're never going to pass if you keep on doing this. Like, you can't do this. Like, you're horrible at playing this way. But they also bond over time, because they play over the course of, like, a month as Momiji's getting ready to for this one tournament. And she's, talking about like, hey, I knew your brother. When I was first, getting into shogi, I got a chance to play against him, and I lost to him so badly that I cried. But he was constantly like grinning, having the time of his life while he was playing. And I thought, oh, well, he's having fun because he's winning. But it turns out that's not the case. He just enjoyed playing shogi so much that he was willing to put his life on the line in order to completely throw himself into it.
I love the
dangerous game of shogi.
I love the one image they show is like him at a tournament, and he like fucking falls over, like knocks half the table over, and he gets up. He's like, yeah, click, and like someone watching the game wasn't just like, well, you stop it, right? They're like, no, keep going. No one's watching us otherwise. They all watch to see this one crazy dude get sick and die on camera. Like, he knocks over half the table, gets up with like a nickel instead of a shogi piece, and he's like, touche. They're just like, he doesn't know how to play shogi. He's just really entertaining with how he plays.
And there's all sorts of stuff that happens during the course of their training. For example, like, Ichi's like, stop staring at the freaking board so much. You always look like you're so grumpy. Why don't you, try looking up? That way you get to look at my face, is, teasing him some more. And then basically right at the end of their training, she's just like, hey, you should forget about playing the Sakura way. Because if you continue to play that way, you're never going to become a pro. And then the next day, it's time for the frickin', tournament. There's some guy who was teasing him at the beginning of the chapter. I neglected to mention, by the way, they got really pissed off at him for making fun of his dead brother, that he started headbutting him over and over again. That was pretty great. He has a habit of headbutting things, by the way, does Momiji.
Yeah,
it's an interesting quality for a shogi player to have.
That was where I was like really confused in the series for a while. I was like, wait, his gimmick is just to headbutt stuff? Why?
Guess who this mangaka was an assistant for prior to getting his own series, Chris?
Kubo.
No.
Because
Tabata.
That makes sense. There's
a little bit of Asta in there, isn't there?
Yeah. This dude's art, though, feels very inspired by Kubo, though. Like early Kubo.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely see that. The body types and the face, and the way the faces fit on them.
Very slender frames and everything like that.
very sharp faces too. Yeah. Icho, of course, is there along with Momiji, and everyone's like, "Oh, the famous pro player, Icho!"
A girl, it was a girl.
Icho gives Momiji one last bit of encouragement by giving him a headbutt, and is like, "Hey, go show them your style of shogi." Momiji struggles initially against his opponent Watanuki, who's like, "You're just a fallen leaf younger brother. You're never going to be a cherry blossom." Blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of symbolism during this whole thing. And Momiji's like, "I can't see the board anymore. Only the fallen leaves of my failures. What should I do? What should I look at?"
So far, I can feel you there. It feels like a Linkin Park song.
It's very melodramatic. Yeah. And then he remembers Icho's advice, which is, "Hey, you get to look at my face if you look up." And so he looks up at his opponent, and all of a sudden he has a move in mind. It catches Watanuki off guard, and Icho's like, "This is it. He's figured it out." And time goes by in a quick montage, and he's like, "What the hell? What is this?" And Icho is explaining, it's like, the entire time that you've been trying to play the soccer away the way your brother did. But you know what? Your brother had this relentless offense, whereas you will play against your brother countless times and have defended against the genius offensive style of your brother for so long. So you will be a genius that will captivate with your defensive shogi. And eventually, Momiji seizes upon opening. He looks like he's having the time of his life, by the way, while he's playing, and he figures out, my brother would always play an offensive style. I would always play a defensive style. So now I will rise up, the fallen leaf. And he puts his opponent into checkmate, or whatever the equivalent is in shogi. I don't know it too great. He didn't end up winning the whole thing. He lost in the semifinals, but that was good enough that he can take on the test, which, by the way, Icho was basically saying, if you just become my apprentice, you can take it anyway. But it's a sign of his progression. He beat someone he was never able to beat before. And so he asks, "Hey, why'd you take me on as a pupil?" And he's just like, "Well, because I wanted to be like Sakura-san, just like you. I lost my purpose of shogi, thinking of a shogi world without him. And then I saw you and I thought of something. With that idiot, I might be able to find what I lost." So she's like, so they're like, "Okay, well, let's both be selfish together then. Let's work this out so that we each get something that we selfishly want." Also, Momiji's got a crush on Icho now, but makes sense. And they're like, "All right, let's do this." This is a good one-shot, honestly. Mm-hmm. It's a nice, complete story all on its own of these two people who, have shared a loss and have decided to come together in order to try and move forward. And I really like, even though I don't understand shogi too good, that there's this very straightforward, it's like, your brother was good at offense, that means you're good at defense. It's like, okay, I understand that in principle, at least.
It's just like how I learned to adapt to my brother's style while playing GoldenEye and N64, so I'm extremely good against people pulling my controller out and shooting me while I can't play. I've adapted to that.
The key counter strategy is to punch them in the face with your free hand.
you punch them in the jaw and then you fist fight. And then mom says turn off the console. She's not going to come upstairs though. That's too tiring for her. So you keep going over a little bit longer, but then one of you gets hit a little too hard and goes on from there.
And that's how you play slappers only.
That's why I'm not allowed to play Odd Job anymore. I like the series though. As I said, I came into this initially hating it. I thought it was just like generically boring. The protagonist's gimmick of headbutting the floor at times just felt random and kind of strange. And then when the first thing he does when he gets in the house is see the love interest, the female character in the series butt naked, I was like, oh, it just felt like it was striking too much of just a series without much inspiration. But it started to warm up a little bit afterwards. One thing I actually enjoy is that Icho is a very forward pushing sort of character. Like, it'd have been obnoxious if she was in the bath and then he came in and she was like really shy about it. But instead, she's like really, like, she gets out of the bath like almost completely naked to be like, wait, I want to talk to you. And then like while she's having a conversation, she's moving her arms too much and her towel just falls off and she's just like, oops, like just doesn't give a fuck. And I find that like laissez-faire kind of attitude towards this very refreshing. Just like, whatever, towel's gonna do what a towel's gonna do. Let's play some shogi and shit. And I just found that the premise, as you said, it got itself into something that was very understandable and very easy to pick up for people who don't understand shogi. There's still a little bit that I wish I knew a little bit more. For example, I imagine there's a lot more to the symbolism of a cherry blossom, to this Momiji or whatever tree that he's referring to, that I simply don't get just because I don't understand maybe the cultural significance behind some of those things.
It has to do with seasons, because sakura blossoms are associated with spring. Momiji is maple, so it's associated with autumn.
Okay, so it's just like a contrast.
Opposite seasons. The title basically kind of translates to something along the lines of season of the maple.
Okay. So I do like it for all those reasons. As you said, though, it also feels like this is something that could function perfectly fine. It's just a one-shot, so we'll have to see what happens, in Chapter 2 and 3. But I ended up really liking this series. It showed some premise, and I like any kind of series that could take something I don't have a ton of interest in and presents it in an interesting way.
Yeah. So it's really going to be all about, like, okay, how does this premise get carried forward from here? Because I did really like this as a one-chapter story. I don't really know how it's going to continue from here, though. So I really do hope it's good, though. It would be nice to have one of those kind of unorthodox sports series to have in Jump. All right. With that said, let's move on to Dr. Stone, because it's time, Chris. It's time.
It's time to get boners, Nick. Boners this week. No stones, just rock hard cocks from all these chicks and clothes. It's pretty hot. Also get stoned.
Okay. By the way, before we get into the chapter proper, character poll. You can actually go and vote for your favorite character by going to viz.com/stonepoll. And there are quite a few options on there in a very strange order, I should add. Chrome is like halfway down the list, and I think that he's probably like the 5th most important character overall in the series. But hey, go on there, vote for your favorite. I literally could not figure out who I was going to vote for. There's too many characters that I like in this story.
What's the name of the douchey Torbjorn-looking dude from the spaceship?
The old man.
Can we all put?
It's not possible.
Can we all write it?
Just give up.
Can we all write old complaining man?
Old complaining man that was on Byakuya's spaceship.
Putting it in there. Old complaining man.
Let's all make sure that if you're going to start a movement on this, make sure that we all phrase it the same way, which has got to be like
old complaining
man on Byakuya's ship.
Old complaining man's enough. We'll know if it gets in there. Like, people would jump like 700 votes for old complaining man. I don't know who they mean.
Let me see here.
They have to, at this point, if they get like a crazy amount of answers or something, they have to just assume it's our stupid fucking podcast at this point, right? They're like, this is honey mustard all over again, isn't it?
Come on, guys. Let's get this more votes than single udon noodle, guys. Hang on a second. International Space Station, blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah.
I'll have to figure out if I can actually find if this guy actually has a name. Because I don't know if he does. I don't know if he does. All right. So this chapter is all about getting that tungsten filament so that they can do their vacuum tube thingy. Mostly it's just kind of like a montage of them just doing stuff. But there are some moments that I did take note of.
Can we just give extra, like, a quick moment of credit to the cover page and what I think Buichi thinks a sexy woman looks like, with her, like, fucking shoulder blades jettisoning out of her body like it's trying to rip through, like, Baraka blades or something.
It's a very weird way to like, because she must be like getting ready to move the pom-pom upward, and that's why her shoulder is up.
This shit is fucking absurd to me. Like, Kohaku's poor spine has been shattered to pieces so she could twist enough to put her butt to the screen. It's great. Hey, I'm sorry, carry on.
Also, what the fuck is she wearing? That's like a swimsuit, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's they're bikini cheerleaders. I watched a movie I watched a documentary about them once.
She's wearing a string bikini. The bottom has a skirt, but she is also wearing stockings and heels. Not her weird heels, but actual heels.
Bikini swimsuit cheerleaders, Nick, have a very difficult life ahead of them. They have to pay for all these pizzas, Nick, but they don't have any money. So they have to find some other way to pay for these pizzas. It's a real dilemma. Can you see where I'm going with this?
Also, Senku is in the background with that explosion and chemical reaction going off in a very unfortunate location in comparison to the rest of his body. So, anyway, they've got the stuff so that they can get the tungsten. And I like how at the start, like, the old chief is just kind of like, so these will lead us to victory. We must throw them because they're very heavy and will do lots of damage. No, that's very wrong. So Senku's like, all right, we've got inside here the tungsten, the metal that will take home the prize for heat resistance. By the way, tungsten, in the same way that lots of different chemicals are kind of anthropomorphized, for example, the chlorine or whatever it was, sulfur, whatever, I forget what it. Sulfuric acid was personified as like the Lady of the Lake who turned into a horrible zombie. Tungsten is Godzilla.
Obviously.
It's a rock dinosaur with spines that spill out tungsten going along its body, and it can breathe fire. So Kohaku brings up, like, how are we supposed to get the tungsten out of these rocks? And so Senku's like, well, and Magma's immediately taking a mallet and smashing them to pieces. And I was like, what are you doing? And Magma's like, what? We gotta get the metal out of the rocks, right? And Senku says, well, I guess, yeah, we would actually need to pound them to dust. And Magma's like, I was right!
So, I'm the smartest man in the world.
I actually do really like helpful Magma. He's just, another character you can throw into all of these insane I'm helping by doing something crazy types. So, and that's honestly where Itagaki's specialty lies, is just having all these idiots surrounding one or two smart people. So, Senku is like, all right, we gotta actually heat this stuff up in order to remove all of the dust and refine it down and actually get all of the film inside of it. And the best way to do that is just to subject it to a very, very, very powerful temperature, so that everything else will basically melt off. So Kaseki's and Kurama are like, okay, then we'll plop it in the oven, and that way we can just get it out. And Senku points out, like, well, no, guys, because if we just stick, the rocks inside of a jar inside of the oven, what do you think is going to happen to the glass surrounding it? And once it reaches just a temperature of 1,000 degrees, then the glass is going to melt around it. Meanwhile, the tungsten inside is going to not have anything done to it. So Senku's like, all right, we're going to have to actually split up our job here. So I'll be whipping up the tungsten toothpaste, and you guys work on the pinpoint heating device. As talking to Kurama and Kaseki. And in the middle of this, Kaseki's like, there has to be an emotional moment here that will make you cry. And he just points out, like, I'm actually very envious of you two. I when I was really young, I would craft things, and I just go off and be helpful on my own. I didn't have anyone that I could, share in my interests and labors with. You guys are so lucky that, you found each other at such a young age. And, I think that would be nice if I had a crafting pal or two. And Chrome's like, what are you talking about? You've got 2 crafting pals. And Kaseki's like, what? I do? And Chrome's like, well, yeah, me and Senku. And Kaseki's like, even though you guys are at least 50 years younger than me? And Chrome's like, well, what's that have to do with it? And Kaseki just starts crying. There's like almost a full page dedicated to it.
Fuck this series, man. You can't draw this shit of an old man crying. I cried because an old man got peanuts that he almost didn't. All right, you can't actually show to me an old man crying and expect me to hold my shit together, because it's not gonna happen.
He has friends,
and that's doubly sad. Nick, I cried like 6 times watching Coco. They were good cries by the end. Good stuff was happening. I was still just like, why are you doing this to me?
I was so happy sad when I first read this chapter. It's like, oh, he has friends.
Friends are worth 1 billion peanuts.
Oh man. Senku drags off Gen to work on some stuff, and he explains, like, there is a very long process of chemical reactions. We must simmer the blue jewel and sodium diperoxide, blah, blah, blah. And Gen just like, I don't really understand much of what you said. I'll help out where I can, basically. I do like how Senku's like, Chrome would have been way better to have in this situation. Oh, man. Meanwhile, Chrome and Kaseki over time basically just like, well, let's basically just combine all of our heating methods together. Because they're like, well, let's take the heating lens for the pinpoint accuracy first of all, and we'll try this on all the different metals in order for how we can heat them up. But even like the weakest metal is not working, so it's not reacting very much to projecting sunlight through a lens onto it. So like, okay, so let's add some fire onto this, and then add the pinpoint heater to it. And they use their kind of an in combination with the lens, and progressively are able to proceed. And eventually they're just like, all right, fine, well, it's still not working. We need to add electric power to this. And eventually Senku comes out. He's like, I've got the tungsten toothpaste. Gen's like collapse over in the background. And so he's like, all right, let's see what you've got. And they've got like the freaking manual levers and the electric and the battery power and the lens. And Senku's like, what the fuck is all this? But Senku's like, I guess we have to resort to this, don't we?
He's like, I guess this was the best idea we really had.
And they, combine all of their methods together with electric current and their pumps and everything in order to finally heat everything up in order to get the tungsten filament. And they are able to actually get it in the right shape. And Senku's like, yes, we did it. This will be the heart of our cell phones. Huzzah.
They did it.
So this was an alright chapter with one very sudden emotional moment in the middle of it.
I can't begin to describe to you how hard this hit me when I first read it. It was like me at work, like in between, like,
customer. Okay, science experiment. Like,
like I had to like sit down for a moment. Oh, no, remember me, even though I will be gone. Remember me, like, no, don't do this to me.
ARMC in the chat. The real friends are the peanuts we got along the way.
Exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah, I know. I like this chapter a lot.
Yes.
It was super good. It's right along that same style of chapter 2, where a lot of things were solved, but I don't think that's a problem. It made this still feel cool, and I love like personifying tungsten as this giant Godzilla thing. It's just kind of a cool visual to have. It makes these like kind of alien pieces of science for those of us who are kind of dumb like me a lot more cool and exciting. Like, I wish all of the periodic table of elements could be just translated as monsters when I was a kid. I'd remember that shit immediately if we did that. Like, I'm legitimately up to the point I'm trying to think of different ways, because I'm trying to memorize like the what's the characters in Japan? The Hatakana? That's not.
Hiragana, yeah.
Hiragana. I'm trying to think of ways I can like make each hiragana look like a fucking Pokemon or something, so that way I can easily memorize them. It's really become like a strategy I'm trying to employ. So I do like that.
Okay.
All right, let's move on then to what some people are calling a very eagerly awaited chapter of We Never Learn. This is question 62. A best friend illustrates X for a genius. So this chapter is all about Tsukijo and Ogata.
Yes, it is.
I'm trying to think if there's anything regarding Rizu and Tsukijo that we need to keep up on. Probably not. Overthinking it. So, it starts with Ogata having a shabby pencil case that Tsukijo notices, and she's like, oh, we should go get one. I can even help you look for it. And Ogata's like, I would like that. Thank you. Tsukijo like stops for a moment and then thanks the gods for this opportunity. Like she literally is just like blessing the heavens themselves for allowing this to happen. And the next day happens, and Ogata shows up, and she sees Tsukijo sitting at their designated meeting spot, and she has like a giant stack of coffee cans behind her.
There are at least 12 coffee cans there. Like, most of them probably are hidden behind her, and you can see at least 10 there. So
yeah, you can see a whole bunch there. She's been drinking a lot of coffee. She's also wearing a dress that's roughly around about $300. So she definitely dressed up for this and has been sitting there for hours. And I like that, like, Ogata brings up, like, oh, you're not wearing white today? She's like, nope, not today. I'm practically in my pajamas. And they point out that her outfit's worth almost $300. So they decide, like, they're going to fuel up before they get started on all this. So they go out for some I guess, pancake-like things. I forget what they're called, but I don't know. Fucking pancake pastry.
She calls them pancakes. She calls them pancakes.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a name for them, isn't there? Like, I feel like they're not just pancakes. Crepes? Is that what they are? Is that what crepes are?
They're not crepes.
I don't know what they are, Nick. I don't know what anything is. They're jelly donuts. So they go out for some jelly donuts.
Oh, Japanese pancakes tend to be fluffier than, like, flapjacks are. So
fair enough.
I think that's the main difference.
No, because they get crepes for dessert too. So it's not.
That is true. Yes.
Yeah. So they have that. It's not important. It's like a fucking panel. They get the food. They're like
we're not going to dissect individual panels this week. Okay, good to know.
Would you like to, Nick?
No, let's go on.
I mean, we should. They talk about how pancakes are the ultimate treat for a young girl, the harmony, crepes for dessert, all that stuff. But the real thing is that Tsukijo is like, ah, yes, now the real fun begins, because I stayed up all last night crafting the perfect plan for the entire day, down to the very minute. And then she was
not down to the very minute, down to 5-minute intervals, which might very well be more insane than down to the last minute.
And she like holds this list up.
Like if you plan something down to the last minute, then it just means you're very anal about stuff. If you plan stuff down to like 90-second intervals, then you're insane.
So she puts all this together, looks up, and sees Yuega behind them, and then she has a moment where she's just like, and she just crumples up all of her blades and tosses them the show. She's like, motherfucker, the main character's here. And that's essentially what she does, because she's like, oh, Yuega, what a coincidence you're here. I guess I'll go.
Pause for a second.
Sure.
Has there been a chapter of We Never Learn that has not featured Yuiga?
I think he's shown up in all of them.
I think he's shown up to some degree in like every chapter.
Okay.
If anyone in the chat knows for certain that there is a chapter where he doesn't show up, do let us know, because I'm pretty sure that this is very much like, well, the protagonist has to show up for the romantic comedy harem series, you know?
Like, she literally just sees it, just like, oh, I got no chance today. Throws it over her shoulder. And she's like, yeah, you know, it's really good that you're here. We're going to look for a new pencil case, but I suddenly remembered something I need to take care of, so I do. And she just fucking bolts. And she's really sad about it because, you know, she's like, it's all right. I should put her friend and, you know, her happiness above all else. That's what's important. Doesn't matter how I feel. And I feel like it's the same mother and her same child who points things out walking by.
This character, I am shocked that these characters didn't show up in the popularity poll. They will in the next one. I'm guaranteeing you they will.
Because again, it's like, Mommy, that person's crying. She's like, teenagers go through a lot of ups and downs. What do you want me to say?
I mean, that's true.
I want that to be your answer for a lot of things. Like, Mommy, that teenage girl's making duck face pictures of herself. It's just like, teenagers do a lot of weird things for attention. We all do. Mommy, that person's on top of the building. She looks like she's about to jump off. Like, life's hard for all of us, kid. Sometimes some of us just can't take it.
Well, Billy, suicide is the leading cause of death in Japan. Isn't that depressing as shit?
Don't worry, Logan Paul's at the bottom of the building to film it for us. He's got a new vlog. So she goes to an arcade, sees a stuffed animal like out of place, and she's like, "Oh, I relate to you."
And it's so sad.
She took a picture of it and just posted on Twitter, said "big mood"
with a black and white filter and lens flare.
And she has a flashback to when she was a younger girl in elementary school, and she was getting 100% on all of her science tests because she was the smartest girl. But all of her classmates would complain because they would bomb the test, and because of her, she would kill the curve of the class. So they would really kind of nail down her on that and everything like that. And then I believe she goes... It's her mom who's the nurse, I believe. Or she just goes to the nurse to get away. I think it's her mom, though, because there's a second scene with her that seemed like a mother-daughter kind of scene. Anyway, she goes to it and says, like, hey, there's a practice test in nearby cram school, you know, so you hate this school, maybe the next one will be better. And she's going to this cram test and finishes in 10 minutes, but she doesn't want to leave because she knows that if she does, all the kids are going to start complaining about her. And that's when Ogata, who she's never met before, finishes and says, I finished. I got them all correct. Can I go home now? And all the students are just like, this fucking bitch. She can't fucking finish the goddamn tab. Rumble, grumble. And she just looks over and she's just like, huh? Why are you complaining? Should I pretend that I'm not done? Is that what you mean? And this plays up later when it actually comes up. But I do like that Rizu sees this as, oh, she's just stonewalling him. She's like, why should I care? When in reality, Ogata was just like, I do not understand your emotions.
I do not understand the concept of consideration in a social context.
Machines are to produce results. Everything else is unnecessary. So she... No, I guess it is just the school nurse because she calls her sensei. So, you know, her school nurse just says, like, oh, you're going to class? This is so sudden. She says, well... I'm through thinking about worrying what other people think of me, and I've reached a decision. I'm going to go as the same high school as someone else. And she says, but who could have predicted that it would take me until the beginning of our senior year for me to speak to her, and I would be floored by her choice of paths. So then Ogata, or Yuiga, shows up, and he's just like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Basically.
She's like, what are you? And he notices that I guess she's just been spaced out so much, she's just been fucking playing the vending machine for like an hour in her flash.
10 of them.
The games are rigged to make it impossible to win that much. And she's like, no, you should go back to, you know, Ogata. What are you doing? He's just like, but weren't you looking forward to this? She's like, what gives you that? He's like, your fucking Twitter feed. You've been posting nonstop about how excited you are about this for some weird reason. Like, who did you assume these tweets were going out to? It's not like you wrote them in a diary. You put them on Twitter.
I do like the progression because it's like hourly updates. So you can tell that she, in addition to being awake all night, she has been awake in breathless anticipation. I'm too excited about tomorrow to sleep 1 week, 1 wink. I can't wait for morning. Maybe I'll head out now. That's 8 hours ago. No, it's too soon. One more bath. Today's the big day. The sun's up. It's a bit early, but it's still all. Here I go.
She's very adorable. And she says, I can't help it. Rizu Ogata changed my life. Listen, you're the only one I'm telling this to, and you can't tell Ogata. So Yuiga says, okay, I promise. And then he makes a comment. He's like, what is this, a love confession? It looks like a love confession. And she says, listen, the day she was, the way The way she was the day of the practice test was so cool. She didn't give a hoot if it bothered other people. She didn't let it sway her, that cool beauty. I wished I had the confidence not to care what other people said. That's how she changed my life. Are you listening, Yuiga? And, like, he's the entire time just like, behind you. I'm actually kind of looking forward to see how this goes. And, of course, Ogata's right behind her. And this is where we...
Turns out Yuiga didn't just ditch her. The way that you did, Sekijo.
And that's when we get the payout there. So... Rizu's like, yeah, you know, I always thought that I'm just kind of dense when it comes to other people's feelings, but you saw it as cool, so thank you. You know, something that I've always seen from a flaw, from a different point of view, could be seen as a positive trait. So it's very nice. And then she's like, so you're gonna fucking help me pick out this pencil case or not? Like, spent a lot of time downtown for a fucking pencil case. And then I guess she says, yeah, she does say yes. And she's like, oh, good. You left so suddenly. I was afraid you were mad at me. And she's like, no, mad. Of course not. Trips on her own fucking feet, crashes into her, and she lands in the, like, harem protagonist on top of her, hand groping her breast. But because she's a female character, too, her skirt's ridden up. Which I just like Yuika's reaction to, like, eek! It's clearly not one of the two female characters who does it. It's him in the background, just like, eek!
That spike is pointing straight into his mouth. Yes.
Fucking, I love this stupid kid so much. And I just note it's an understanding, and that's basically the end of the chapter. They got the pencil case. Yuiga wonders aloud why she even wanted to leave the two of them together, and that's it.
I really like this chapter. It's very sweet, and it gives us a lot of insight into Sekijo's character and why she admires Ogata so much in a way that I just kind of like thought that she was a weirdo before. And it's nice that they worked that into, you know, the way that Ogata and Sekijo's friendship now develops to this point, because Ogata realizes, you know, how Sekijo now thinks of her when she kind of had a weird time thinking about it beforehand. She was like, oh, I can have a friend now. All right. It's like, no, there's actual, like, affection there.
Now, Nick, do you believe that their relationship has been proven to be beyond that of just friends?
No.
Okay.
Now, I thought about going into this and basically just, like, stonewalling you. And just like, isn't this great? Now, but... I gave it a lot of...
let me preemptively put this in here. Nick, I have no money in my bank account for the next 2 weeks. A pizza would be great. Go ahead. I haven't eaten anything today except old popcorn in a movie theater and expired candy. I got out of a dumpster. Not a lie. Go ahead.
I do really appreciate the way that, you know, it shows that Sekijo really does care deeply for Ogata in a way that is, you know, very sweet. But this chapter... in my mind, does literally nothing to increase the idea that she has a romantic interest in her. Because basically all that stuff in this chapter is limited to jokes. You know, the kind of jokings, like, hey, it's kind of like if you were in love with her, you know. The double meaning, for example, of how Yuiga says, like, you really like Ogata, don't you? Could be read as both you like her as a person and you like her. That's clearly a very deliberate choice. And then, of course, there's just, you know, the accidental glomping at the end. But if anything, in terms of, like, the way that the characters actually feel, I feel like this has only given me ammunition to go. It's like, well, no, clearly this is how she feels, you know. It's just that she has the personality, which is explained in this chapter, where she has a really hard time just throwing out to people the way that she actually feels about stuff because of the way that she, you know, people reacted to her as a kid. Which, by the way, if you have someone in your class who is that good, don't be a dick like that to them. Like, come on. I understand that there's like, oh, this is hard. Why is there going to be one really smart person in our class? It's like, to fucking get better then. Study harder. Fuck you. Little shits.
You know, the people who are complaining like that are probably the same people who go home, play Call of Duty, someone loses them, and they just say get good to them. Like, it's that same logic of just like, you could complain and act like the system's unfair, or you can get better, you know. Which one do you find to be a more admirable use of your time?
the mental gymnastics Nick is going through. Literally, I went through this chapter after someone was like, oh, Nick's gonna have to buy the pizza. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? This is like the least convincing Sekijo chapter we've had in terms of, oh, she's got a romantic interest. Literally, the only thing that you could argue that makes it seem to point that way is that Yuiga may, and you don't know because, you know, of the precise wording that is used, may think that Sekijo wants to bang her. In which case, it's then followed up with Yuiga going, why does she want to leave us alone? I don't get it. He knows nothing about the way women feel. He's got 3 different women throwing themselves at him, and he doesn't get it. Of course he has no fucking idea how Sekijo actually feels. So there's that.
There is that. Does it help or hurt the argument that Tsukijo falls into the harem love protagonist position on top of Ogata, though?
It actually hurts it because it pushes forward the idea that all of it's being done as a joke.
I feel it helps it because in a regular protagonist harem series, they would then fall in love, or that would at least be teased.
No, it's only the first person who falls on them that gets that.
That is true. I will admit, some of my feelings may be persuaded by the fact that I've only had popcorn as nutrition today. Gonna faint a little bit here, but you know.
Oh yeah, and pizza's gonna be the best thing for you after having popcorn. Come on, Nick, I need to have a balanced diet.
Yeah, Nick, I need my dairy now.
I'm serious about this. I did not take this out of hand. I literally went and found a raw scan of this chapter so that I could find the precise moment where Yuiga says, you know, you really like Ogata, don't you? And his exact words are, "Omae hontou ni Ogata no koto suki nandara," which means exactly what it says in the English version. You really like Ogata, don't you? And it uses the use of like that could mean like as a friend or like as a lover. So I'm pretty sure that at this point, the only thing that we conclude is like, okay, clearly that's the joke at this point. It is just flat out, haha, it's like if Sekijo really liked Ogata. And I am going to say again, because it never fucking satisfies people when I say this, Chris is probably right.
But we're never going to get the proof
yet. When it gets to a tipping point, yes, I'll give him the fucking pizza. Or again, if the series ends and things are as they are right now, I'll get him a pizza. But that's it. I haven't seen anything to actually indicate that Sekijo actually just fucking loves Ogata. Okay? And I'm irritated because you all are irritating me, not because, like, oh, you're trying to prove... So fuck off. So. Nick learned Japanese to not buy Chris that pizza. All right. Let's move on to Promised Neverland?
Promised Neverland, that's it.
Promised Neverland. All right. Okay. Well, I'm glad that they built up that reveal. Huh. Chapter 86, Firepower. I must say so disappointed in the beginning of this chapter. Ray and the old geezer have shown up to save the day while Violet and her comrades were getting killed by Noose. And Numa, kind of. Numa is confirmed to partially be inside of Noose, whatever the hell that means. So Violet, like, right away kind of briefly explains the situation that they're in. It's like, we're leading a revolt against these people. And Ray's like, all right, I got it. We're going to kill that demon, old man. And Violet's like, what? How did you understand the situation so quickly? Don't you have more questions? And Ray's like, no, I don't need you to explain any more to me. And I'll explain to you exactly why I don't need you to explain any more to me. It's because I'm #Ray.
He's like,
he spends a page and a half explaining why he doesn't need things explained to him.
It'd be great if he's just like, there's no time to explain things, but I'm going to take the time to explain things back to you. Which is essentially the same thing, but in reverse. So in a way, it's kind of the hipster way to do things, which is right up #Ace Riley.
Using this handy PowerPoint presentation. Oh man, get me a projector. So, shouldn't I spend time killing things? Well, I need a projector so I can explain how smart I am.
Slide 1. Ray is awesome. This is the important thing to consider when we get into this presentation. And every moment you should be considering how awesome Ray is and how much more awesome you would be if you were hashtag Ray. But you're not, because of slide 2. You don't have baby memories. Hashtag Ray does.
To make sure that you understand every other slide of this presentation, slides 1 and 2 will be repeated throughout the rest of the presentation. Slide 3, Ray is a very good listener. Slide 3A, because Ray is awesome. Slide 3B, which you aren't, because you don't have baby memories. Hashtag baby memories. Slide 4, what a hashtag is.
Slide 4A, I invented them because I'm awesome. Slide 4B, I invented them in the womb. When I remember that because my baby remembers.
News is just like sitting watching the presentation, taking notes. Do you think this will be on the test?
He's saying it to like the dismembered head of his fucking twin.
Let me copy off of you. Oh, I fucking missed Ray. Oh my god. So the old man just like, get out of my fucking way, brats. He's just like, I'm gonna go kill that guy. And Violet's like, no, you don't understand. Sniping him won't work. And he's like, well, hold on. Ray, prepare the second proper presentation. Old man is really good at sniping, which you are not, because, 1, you don't have baby memories.
He's just like, the old man's good at sniping. Not as good as me, because I get 360 no scope all day. Fight me. Rust 1v1 no scopes. Just like Final Destination, Fox only no items. Just like, I fucking hate you. He always plays the lamest shit.
Oh god. So, old man's like, he's not normal, but it's okay. I just need to make myself disappear, make my presence and everything else be hidden. He just like starts doing like Mission Impossible themes, doing music to himself or something. I think it's called. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, he does like the dun 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 dun, and he gets like the Henry Cavill like arm fucking like punches that he does like dun dun dun.
That's satisfying gift, by the way.
So fucking stupid and awesome though. I'm just like boom boom.
Oh man. Oh. I showed that moments to Nicole, and then I was like, oh, and I also have to show you Roman Reigns cocking his arm for his Superman punch now too. It's somehow way less cool for him to do it that way than to just kind of like
yeah, to just like fucking throw his fists out like that. Look, we've been saying it forever. Superman is a better Roman Reigns than Roman Reigns.
Can you imagine if like Clark Kent would just walk into buildings or so? No.
Like, and I can imagine like Toy Master being like, that is so lame. And he gets like his face punched through. Is it lame now? He's just like, still pretty lame.
But then if he's getting ready for a fist fight, he just goes, then the Toy Man's like, that's simultaneously dorky and intimidating. No! Oh gosh. Noose is having his whole insane thing, like, wow, Numa's inside me, I'll kill you all, so go ahead and try and shoot me, because then I'll just know, we will know where you are, and I'll kill you, and if you don't come out, I'll just ragdoll this motherfucker. He's just swinging this guy around by his fucking head. Come out and play or I'll fucking kill him! And, I guess that old man just kind of has his, like, you know, like, just breathe out. Bang. And shoots him right in the head and kills him.
That'd be great. He has the whole elaborate setup, and they forgot to do the sound effect. So it's just like a 5-minute like build up, like click, bang. Like it's clearly just some dude's voice cut dubbed over it. Bang.
It's Ray doing hashtag bang.
Kaboom. Like guns don't. Sniper rifles don't generally go kaboom. It's like,
well, I grew up my whole life in an orphanage. Maybe I don't know how guns sound. Ooga.
Yeah, he's like woof woof. I
don't know. The gun goes woof woof. The cat goes ooga. The horse goes yoink. He kills Noose. Just dead. What an anticlimax. Just say, don't worry, I'll shoot him.
At least it's one of the fucking characters I can give a fuck about.
I like how he just like resorts to, like get good 12-year-old talk right away too. Because I was like, how the hell did you kill him? And he's like, that's how you snipe, bitch. And he demands to know where Antenna Shorty, meaning Emma, is. And Violet starts to explain. We cut over to where Luvis and Emma are. It was like, it's been almost 10 minutes and none of your friends are here. And Emma's like, oh yeah, but none of your friends are here either. And I do like that Luvis doesn't focus on, like, my comrades are dead. He focuses first on, like, oh, what, you think they're my friends? Well, yeah, they probably are actually dead, to be fair. And he actually explains that when their presence disappears, a whistle is blown, which has already happened twice. The first probably being Luz, the second Bayon, and Noose's and Numa's presence also disappeared too. So the third whistle is soon going to go off. He's like, yep, they're dead. So, yeah, you think they're my friends? They're not my friends. It's true that I am actually a little bit sad that this has happened, especially that, Bayon's been lost, because I've known him for such a long time, and we understood each other in many ways. And we would hunt together. We would have true hunts before the promise. Truly a pitiful being. I'm sure that he had fun at the end, though. And so he's like, anyway, magnificent. He's like just behind Emma all of a sudden. He uses Shunpo, Chris. He has the Flash Step. How will they ever defeat him when he is the god of Flash? And he congratulates Emma because, like, hey, you managed to defeat tigers even though you were rabbits. But that is wonderful. That is how humans should be. It's enough to blow my sadness away. The question is, how many will remain? Because currently it looks like it's just you. How many do you think will get here? Or have they all died and it will just be you? You have 3 more seconds and then it's going to be 10 minutes. And he counts it down. Emma lifts up her pistol and the chapter ends as he reaches 1. The only one that we know is on their way already is Nigel. We don't even know if by this point the old man and Ray have even set off towards Emma. But presumably someone will arrive very soon. Otherwise, it's going to be very much just like, all right, and, well, that wasn't nearly as satisfying as I wanted it to be.
It'd be great. It gets to like 3, 2, 1. Who's that? Well, it's Hiroko Sumi, of course. Everyone knows him. I heard this guy was in the area. I thought he might get involved. This is the Greatest Royal Rumble joke for everybody who's listening. There was a random sumo wrestler in the Rumble because the Prince of Saudi Arabia didn't know that Yokozuna's been dead for like 15 years.
Not only did he not know that Yokozuna's dead, that is the most hilarious detail, by the way, because Yokozuna died, Like 15, like it's not, like Ultimate Warrior, I kind of get. If you haven't been following. Randy Savage, he died a couple of years ago. But it's like, Yokozuna, I want to see you. Let's get a sumo wrestler, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty equatable, right? Like, Yokozuna's been dead 18 years. He died in 2000. How have you not know? Like, he was just like, give me Bruno Sammartino. They're like, it actually would not have been impossible for that to have happened not that long ago. But why are you asking for dudes who are super duper old?
My theory is that as part of this deal, in order to check out the business deal that they were getting into, the prince just like started watching Raw from episode 1 chronologically. So all these people who are starring out in the early 90s are like the only ones in his mind. Get me the Portuguese man of war, Aldo Montoya. That guy looked awesome.
I would like to see this Owen Hart. I hear so much like nothing but old wrestlers who are dead. You're just
How about Mr. Perfect? He looked great.
I would like if we could have Gorilla Monsoon on commentary. Perhaps.
And of course his rival, Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Dude, he's like, would you take Brother Love? Because he's still around. He's like,
can we get men on a mission? Well, we can get 2 of the 3 of them.
I don't know why. This reminds me, this is super off topic, guys, but back when there was the group Legacy, which was just supposed to be like the 3rd generation, like sons of famous WWE wrestlers stable, my brother and I used to joke that like the son of Tugboat would show up and be like, hey guys, I should be in the Legacy. And they're just like, who are you? He's like, it's me, Tugboat's kid, Little Tuggers. Like a little sailor's cap on, and it's just like, get out of here, you fucking fat nobody. It's just like, but on tugboats, kid.
There were some. Do you know that there were actually like tryouts to get into Legacy, and the only like prerequisite was just going to be like you have to be the son or grandson of a previous wrestler. So you had like freaking this guy named Manu or something.
Wasn't he like Jimmy Snuka's kid?
I don't know I think he might have been one of the head shrinker's sons or something like that. But then there was Sim Snuka, who is like Jimmy Snuka's son. But previously he was in Deuce and Domino.
I like that stable very quickly abolished those rules. Like, no, it's just Ted DiBiase and Cody Rhodes at this point. We can't keep having these nudniks come in. They're like, sir, the Mounties kid says he wants a spot in Legacy. He shows up 600 pounds. Let's do it, guys.
or just like, how about this? You have to be a son or grandson of a previous WWE wrestler, and you have to be weirdly handsome, too.
It's like, sir, Brian Christopher said he's allowed to join the group because Jerry Lawler's in the Hall of Fame. Just like, God damn it. I need to see these rules again. There's definitely some stuff I can change, some loopholes I need to close up.
Oh boy. Let's move on to freaking
Seven Deadly Sins. All right, let's talk Seven Deadly Sins, chapter 266, The Pursuers and the Pursued. There's honestly not a tremendous amount to say about this chapter because we kind of get a couple little glimpses all over the place. There's some talk from Dreyfus about how the different, kind of battles are going. They mentioned that Slater's unit is fighting pretty well, even after Hendricks kind of left, and that Jericho's unit's been holding up. There's like that one like comment of like, I thought she was just a tomboy in training, but she might actually have what it takes. So we get some cool kind of glimpses there. But then we see that a figure, some kind of like, white-faced fucking like fighting game boss like kind of character showed up at the other gate and is wiping them all out. And particularly is going after Grimoire, Dreyfus' son. So we see Dreyfus running to catch his son, be like, oh, if I attack from here, Grimoire will also be, please don't take my son from me. And then we see that Dreyfus has grown huge. He's grown to the size of a giant and literally snatched his son away from being killed. And everyone's just like, what the fuck? What happened? And we see that he actually was granted the power of full size as a gift to protect his son. And then we kind of cut away, and the next thing that sort of happens is the one Seraph shows up, and it's a hot chick now. And there's like a particular thing of like zooming in her chest with a sound effect of like badoom, and then zooming in on her crotch with another badoom, which is weird because it's not even like an ass shot. It's just a shot of her crotch from below with the badoom. So I'm like, what's badoom mean? Usually like what's usually the badoom like is accompanied by something, but the only reason this fucking happened is to explain that the spirits, the archangels, took over physical bodies the same way that Ludashel took over Veronica, I think was the sister she took over. She took over her body. It's to show that they took over bodies, and while they're in them, they basically heal the body, but they also kind of age it. And as they do more and more in these bodies, they run the risk of basically killing the body because it can't keep up with everything that the angels are doing. So I guess that the person that she was in before was a girl, and they aged her up, which is very strange because then the archangels reveal their true forms, and the one kid looks exactly the fucking same as he did before. So it's like, what was the point of that? It's not like he looked different. He's like, I searched the world for a proper vessel, one that looked exactly like me already, but had tits. At least the other one actually looks distinctly different. He's like a three-faced, like Azora-looking angel dude, which is pretty cool. That's the whole kind of thing there. It just kind of puts the pressure on the fact that if Ludashel kind of gets into a lot of high-intensity fights and a lot of bad things happen, potentially the princess body could be lost in that scuffle as well. And then they reveal their true forms because they don't need the other bodies anymore. One of them was a person who was already dead.
I actually really hate this because they goes like, oh, his vessel is actually a woman, and then immediately he discards the vessel. It's just like, what the fuck was the point?
It was literally just for a moment of fan service.
It was so dumb. They could have accomplished the same thing by having, a boy-like body suddenly get really tall and more muscular. And it's like, what the hell happened? You aged up. It was like, oh, this is why this happens, and this is why it didn't happen to this vessel. It's the exact same thing, and all you get out of it is like, it's a girl is just like, boobs.
It's a pretty shameless way of doing it, too.
It's really dumb.
Then at least it would have been different if when he discarded the body, you could be like, oh, well, that's who it. But it looks like it's still like it looks still like a young boy version in the human. Like, it'd be different if you discard it and you're like, oh, it's like an elegant woman kind of thing. It almost feels like girl power for a moment just to be like tits, ass, boom, done. And discard that shell because fuck her. She's no use to me anymore. This nameless person. They say that the war is not over yet. Then we cut over to where Estarossa, who is still calling himself Melodious, is flying away with Elizabeth, saying, oh, we're going to go to the place where we sneak off to avoid prying eyes, because he's still speaking as though he's Melodious. So he's talking about, like, oh, these places we shared together. And she's like, what are you talking about? Estarossa, you're not Melodious. He's just like, what do you mean? Of course I am. I'm totally Melodious. Oh, God, headache. He starts falling. Elizabeth catches him and like stops him, and then he grabs her throat. They arrive at their destination, and then he kind of goes mad and clutches her throat. So that's essentially the entirety of it.
There is also a little something interesting going on because, Estarossa like knows of their like special place that only they knew about. So Elizabeth is like, only Meliodas and I know about that place. So I wonder if like the darkness is like actually imparting some knowledge on him, or if he was just being a fucking creeper and spying on them when they snuck off together.
They did show that last week, or one of the previous weeks, that he did do that he did spy on them when they'd go out to places.
Ugh.
But some people are saying that maybe he is Melodious. He's not. If he is, he's a Melodious of the past, because he says at one point when he's accused of being Estarossa, he's like, Estafossa? Who's that? He's my dud of a little brother. Like, obviously,
he has no dark magic. Fuck him.
Yeah, he blows chunks. Fuck my little brother. He's such a dork.
Love yourself, everyone.
I always unplug his controller when we play GoldenEye, and I slap the shit out of him.
Don't let him play Oddjob.
Yeah.
Little fucking cheater.
Yeah, that's the chapter, essentially.
I don't really have a lot to say about this one. It's just kind of like
it's there. It's
buying time for the climax of this fight, I think.
I want us to get to the stuff with with Elizabeth and Estarossa, and like the Dreyfus stuff was fine. It's kind of cool. He has the power of a giant, at least temporarily. Like, hey, a little moment for Slater and Jericho is fine, but the whole thing in the middle with the Archangels was unnecessary. And then this part at the end is kind of just like, I wish it had been in a different chapter and we could just see what happens after this, because I'm not like holy shit, Elizabeth. Like, I want to get to the next part.
All right, Black Clover, page 158. True form, true power. So last time Asa and teamed up, used their big powered up forms, kicked ass, have knocked out their opponents, and Floaty Leashed has apparently awakened and is like actually moving stuff around and stuff. Now, I will say what happens at the start of this as he approaches Yuno and Asta confused me a lot when the first couple of times I read it, because seemingly it's already there. There's a sword planted in the ground. Was there a sword there before in like previous chapters?
I don't remember, honestly. I'm not the best person to ask for this. It's obviously not one of Asta's swords because it doesn't look like them. But
it wasn't. Replica Rabbit says it wasn't there. See, the impression I got was that somehow Asta had dropped one of his swords and then Leashed picks it up. But that's not the case, because it's a Demon Dweller sword, and when Leashed picks it up, it takes on his magic, because it absorbs his magic, presumably. It is overwhelmed by his light magic, the same way that the Demon Dweller sword is usually black because of Asta's anti-magic. But it starts off as being black and crusty, and then all that crumbles away as it absorbs his magic and becomes all light and glowy. So I literally was under the impression, like, did he just pick up Asta's sword and then turn it into his own sword and, like, take possession of it? The only reason I was able to figure out that is not what happened is because Asta then takes out his sword and they're holding theirs simultaneously. You can see Asta, when Leash approaches them, he's holding both of his swords in his hands. And Leash still has his sword. So there is a third sword. Okay. But literally, you're just like, there's a sword there, and he picks it up out of the ground. So I was like, where did it come from? Anyway, Leash uses Shunpo. He, too, is the god of flesh. Appears in front of Asta, and Asta's like, holy crap. Because not only was he moving very quickly, he couldn't even sense him moving. He couldn't sense his magic, and he can't read his ki. So he says it's as if he's made himself one with the ambient mana, which sounds like a very intelligent thing for Asta to say, so I don't believe that it actually came out of his head. Leash gets ready to strike, and Asta and I think both get out of the way as he swings it down. Either that or he just uses it to blow them away. He sends out waves of energy from the sword through the air, just completely overwhelming them. And Asta's like, this guy's really tough. Also, he's very tired from the fights that they've been at by this point. Mimosa can't even help because her mana is spent as well. So it's up to Yuno. Oh, no. Yuno is just like, Kamehameha. She unleashes this very huge energy blast from his hand. And Leash, of course, has a Demon Dweller sword, which can absorb and repel magic and stuff. So he's just like, meh, and throws it back. And Raya's like, yes, this is one of the Demon Dweller sword's rightful powers. It's like, well, yeah, we've seen Asta's sword do that. That's not insanely special yet. Anyway. So Yuno tries to use Mana Zone to launch a blast of magic from behind him, but he's just like, just absorbs it again. So Raya's like, ha 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 ha. Even if Leash isn't fully awake yet, just managing to force him to have to react is really something. I'd expect no less from Leash. He doesn't finish that. Something special about Yuno. Can you believe that, Chris? Anyway, Yuno had predicted that this next bit would happen, which is that Asta will surpass his limits and join me. And sure enough, Asta streaks forward from Leash's blind spot while Leash is distracted, using the Demon Dweller sword to absorb the magic. And they both attack him together as the chapter ends. While they're going, it's like, rivals!
I do love that, like, they literally will say, like, it's like, I think it's like the second chapter now in this little group where, like, the chapters basically ended with just like, I'm gonna be Wizard King. No, I am. We're gonna be rivals. Like, it's just very amusing to me. Like, I don't know how you, like, it would exaggerate the series into a joke, like, the same way, like, you would be like, oh, Naruto's just about some boringly obnoxious kid who's like, believe it, Hokage! Because, like, that is what Black Clover and Asta is, where he's just like, rival! You're my rival! I'm gonna beat you, Wizard King! Like, it's legitimately his character.
I do like this chapter more than the last couple we've gotten, at least, because at least it's showing, like, okay, this villain is probably going to kick their fucking asses all over the place.
Is he, Nick?
I can only hope so.
Does the end?
They just beat him down. And they're like, I wonder what that whole elf possession thing was going to be. Oh well, we showed them.
Let's mind control them and end this problem at its source.
Let's use blood magic to control them to turn back into their usual selves. Oh god.
I don't have too much to say on this chapter.
There's not a lot of content to it because it's very much just a mid-action scene. So, yeah.
It's just sort of like this weird pace that this arc's sort of been on where, we had that whole thing at the Black Clover base and then it moved on to that fight with Leash and the Wizard King, which seemed like it was going to be like the high point and we kind of get the falling action from there. But then, because we got like, the idea, like the villains are stronger. Like this is like I guess I can't spoil Infinity War, it's still happening, but this is like that big moment where you're like, oh shit, these guys have the victory here, let's let the falling action happen and then set up the idea that like the heroes will rise back next time. But then they just beat like a couple of members of the new villain group already. Like we've still kind of been there, and now they're fighting against the main antagonist. So I don't know where the structure of this is kind of going. At this point, I really I'm almost very doubtful of the idea that like the Wizard King beats them, or not the Wizard King, Leash beats them,
yeah.
And they go down and they have to regroup and recover. Like part of me is like, maybe it does just end here. Like I don't know. It'd feel like a really big waste, but I honestly like part of me is just like, I guess these characters are so stubborn that I guess they'd have to be knocked unconscious and like dragged away unwillingly to like leave the situation. I don't know.
There's an element of believability that you need when you're telling a story like this, that, you know, the good guys are actually in danger of losing. And we've been programmed by this point to things like, well, everyone in Black Clover is freaking invincible and the good guys are always going to win. Ass is always going to, you know, just win. So I think that we're getting to the point in the series where the tide is going to turn in favor of the side of bad because of all the shit that's going on. But it has not been a very steady and convincing turn, mostly due to Yuno's whole thing. It's like, I don't care, I'm still Yuno.
And maybe that's why I like Zora so much, is he seems to be the one character who doesn't belong in the series, because like several times now he's just like, well, shit's gotten too big and like over the top for us, we should back up. Every other character is just like, bring it, motherfuckers, and he's the one who just like, I think this is supposed to be the cinematic fight we lose so we can come back and do a couple dungeons for XP and then get stronger. I think we're supposed to lose this encounter, and everyone else is just like, nah bitch, I grinded for days before this.
It's like,
I'm about to sequence break the shit out of this story.
It's like the DM spent all this time crafting this campaign, and Zora's players has gotten through this very intricate backstory. He's very into playing his character, being a very anti-hero kind of person, so they can play off of all the different people in the party very well. And then Yuno and Asta are munchkin playing assholes who keep on finding some way to bullshit with their feats, and they keep on coming with these insane ideas like, I'll just bum rush the guy and attack him. And the GM's like, fucking fine, roll for it. And they keep on getting natural 20s. God damn it, fuck off.
Motherfucker.
The DM just doesn't have it in them to just be like, nope, GM fiat, you lose. He keeps on deciding that he'll play it fair. It's like, never give stats to the god, just let the god win.
Otherwise it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, let's finish up with One Piece. Chapter 904, Introducing the Revolutionary Army Captains, which is all about introducing the Revolutionary Army Captains. Surprisingly, that's basically the only thing that happens in this chapter of One Piece. Basically, nothing else goes on. There's very little cutting around between scenes. I think that there's only one scene transition that happens in the entire chapter.
Yeah, we go from Kamabaka Queendom to everything else that's happening over on this island.
So the Kamabaka Queendom is where the revolutionaries are currently stationed, having lost their longtime base of Baltigo, moved their upcoming council meeting to this island. So, we get to see a bunch of old faces. It's what, Ivankov, I think, is her
Ivankov. Ivankov, we see
Ivankov.
Koala,
Sabo, and Dragon. Yeah. And Sabo is still kind of recovering from the news about how awesome Luffy's been doing, basically.
I guess we technically also see I forget his name. The guy with the scissors hands, though, who was also part of the group from Impel Down. You can see, I think, a brief shot of him in the one panel with Ivankov at the giant table. He seems to be the guy on the far right, unless that's Koala, but I think that's Ivankov. Yeah, because Koala's on the left.
Yeah, Koala's on the left, yeah.
Inazuma, was that it? It was something, something.
Yeah. So they're discussing some stuff, and they're basically, Dragon declares, it's like, yeah, all right, we gotta firm up our plans here, because at the Reverie, it's finally time. And Sabo finishes the thought, to declare war against the Celestial Dragons. So there you go. Then we cut away to Lulusia Kingdom, where Captain Peachbeard.
I love this because, one, it's just such a great name, but two, One Piece has this thing where if a beard shows up that's not Whitebeard or Blackbeard, they suck ass and they exist to get their shit pushed in. So the moment they showed Peachbeard, I was like, Peachbeard's about to get jacked the fuck up. I am pumped for this. Like, this dude could have shown up with with Mjolnir and the coolest fucking design ever, and I'd still be like, he's about to get his shit pushed in.
Oh man, who was?
They did it with Brownbeard.
What did Brownbeard do? Yeah,
Brownbeard attacked an island and then got his shit pushed in. I think Ace beat him. Because he was trying to find Blackbeard, or no, not that.
Ace was dead by that point.
Yeah, no. Who fought?
Okay, he showed up on Punk Hazard. That was it.
Well, he showed up at Punk Hazard, but that was after he got defeated beforehand. I forget who beat him the first time.
Basil Hawkins.
Was it Hawkins?
Wiki.
Huh.
The magician.
I guess it was.
All right. And then he showed up later in Until Dawn. Yeah. So they are invading this kingdom. And they're like, we are under Blackbeard's fleet, so we're gonna take what we want and do all sorts of stuff, rape and pillage and all that crap. And there is a girl who it was messaged to us at some point. There's like, this is actually a character that showed up in a cover page story at one point or another. I was like, okay, whatever. I don't recognize her. Never seen her before. So.
That's like an Easter egg for people who pay that much attention to enjoy. You don't need to know it.
Yeah. Anyway, all that's important is that she's begging with Peachbeard, saying, "It's like, listen, the only thing that we have that's of value is our heavenly tribute that is paid to His Majesty and the Celestial Dragons. We barely are scraping by as it is. If we don't have enough to pay for the heavenly tribute, we're going to be put to death." And so Peachbeard's like, "Oh well, that means you got money, right? Find it." And then the cavalry arrives, starting with this large man who makes his way up out of the ground, which kind of comes out in this weird wave.
It's almost as though he turns it into like a liquid or like a bouncy castle kind of like he changes the very like consistency of it. It reminds me almost a little bit of like how not Baby Five, what was his name? Mr. Senor Pink. Senor Pink had the ability to like swim through the ground, and when he did it, it kind of changed it. He must have some kind of power that functions in a similar fashion.
He has this weird way of speaking where he's just like, "Oh, all of you are staring at me! Stop staring at me!" While he's wearing like a bandolier and a skirt that goes down to approximately 1/5 calf thigh height. And that's it.
That may be one of the distracting features. The part I can't get is what the fuck's going on with the elbow patch. It is connected to nothing, but just exists there. Is that part of his skin? Is that a tattoo? Is it armor with absolutely no adhesive to it? What's going on? It's like Adebisi's hat. I don't understand the logic of how this works, and I'm going to be obsessed trying to figure it out.
Yeah. He turns the ground into waves in order to repel a bunch of Peachbeard's crew. A bunch of the passersby are confronted by a woman with glasses and a cigarette, and she kind of half scolds them for being... Oh, no, not half scolds them. She calls them trash because they are not doing anything to resist. And then two more arrive. One being this kind of short, gadgety guy who's wearing a jetpack. And the other one, this tall, cloaked figure with a kind of plague doctor mask over his mouth. And they're introduced as the Revolutionary Army's military captains. The big guy is Morley. The girl is Bello Betty, which is just a fun thing to say. The inventor type is Lindbergh, and the plague doctor guy is Karasu, because he looks like a crow.
It's worth noting that literally like the cloak of feathers that Karasu wears seems to have life itself, because you can see shadows of birds and dogs in it in the one panel making noises. So
yeah, it's true.
It looks as though maybe that's his power, or I don't know. But it's a very cool like visual. Like I do love that, just as an aesthetic kind of thing.
And in typical One Piece character fashion, like the most intimidating looking ones have these bizarre, character quirks. Morley is like, "Oh, you boys, stop it, stop it!" And Karasu is apparently very self-conscious because he mumbles around underneath his mask. The most interesting that I think is actually Bello Betty, because she gives everyone a buff. She's like, raise the flag, and everyone takes up sticks and starts beating the shit out of all of the pirates. It's actually specifically a devil fruit ability, the pump fruit. So she's like the ultimate cheerleader, and they actually just give strength to all the people in order to repel the pirates. The captains actually do very little themselves to actually fight the pirates. They just use their abilities to like harass them or take away their weapons and stuff. Yeah, and Karasu summons a bunch of birds, so maybe he can change his cloak into like different animals and command them that way.
Or perhaps he has some like raven kind of themed fruit or something like that. I don't know.
The caw fruit.
Not impossible.
Not impossible. Yes. They basically just allow the people of the kingdom to be given Peachbeard's bounty, so then they can say, hey, that way you'll have a little bit of money to help out, and if you need our help, here, take this, and you can contact the Revolutionary Army. And she gives them I forget what it's called,
the VV card.
Yeah. Also, I like how Peachbeard is like, Master Blackbeard will extend his wrath upon you. No, he doesn't actually care about people who work under him.
Yeah. That's exactly how he would.
What? There was a guy working under me named Peachbeard? That's hilarious.
Stupid fucking name.
And then their business is basically done there. So like, all right, let's get going, because we're supposed to meet up because we're going to go fight the celestial dragons. And we end the chapter with a note that there's only 2 days until the reverie, and the schemes of players around the world begin to intertwine.
I do love the note at the end of it. Limburger's like, I think it's Limburger's just like, it's going to be cool. Oh, turn on your amplifier, Karasu. Oh, I forgot. Like, he's the entire time, everyone's like, what's he mumbling about? He's just like, why can't anyone hear me? I like part of this chapter quite a lot. I like these designs for some of these characters. Like, I love Karasu, and Limburg gives me like this is it guild mage kind of feel to him that I love. Like the very over the top, like the cat whiskers, like he like jumps around with like a super jetpack full of shit. Like, I think it's just a very cool visual design. Morley is one of those sort of strange designs that I can't hate, but I'm not in love with. But Betty's design really kind of underwhelmed me. I like her power, but aesthetically, it's just sort of this kind of lame thing of like mini skirt, garter belt, and a shirt, like a jacket with no shirt. That just kind of, it's not like I'm like a prude who's just like, I can't believe Oda would draw something so scandalous. It's just not particularly engaging. So maybe it's based off something and I'm not getting the reference to it, but I was kind of hoping for something a little bit more interesting there.
I do appreciate that she seems to be the leader, even when the four captains are together. That's kind of cool. Also, I like the one part of her design that I really dig is that she wears her mask sunglasses thing, and then she's got another set of glasses on top of her hat.
Also, and this is very important, she has lipstick on, so she does pass the Nami test thus far. She does not look exactly like Nami, which is very important. I appreciate that. But I dig it. I dig this chapter.
It was an all right chapter, but it's surprisingly uneventful, honestly, given everything that we've got so far. So we're kind of in that downturn in between arcs where it's like, okay, we gotta slow things down and then build things back up again.
This is also another part of world building. Like, I love Oda, and sometimes it's just like, dude, you need to stop building the world. We need to start ending this shit, because this almost feels like the supernovas, where you're just like, hey, here's fucking 12 or 8 new characters you didn't give a fuck about before but are now big. Like, here's 4 new characters who are almost certainly going to be important characters, because in the Revolutionary Army we only really knew about like Sabo and Dragon and like then the side members and Ivankov, but here are like our commander kind of characters, so we shall see.
Yep. And that's gonna do it. We are gonna cut off Weekly Manga Recap here. So thank you everyone for joining us and putting up with the momentary delay at the top of the show. We tend to record the show these days on Thursdays at around 7 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can check us out on smashcast.tv/RLOT and twitch.tv/RLOT for the live stream. If you want to be updated in case things get moved around, stuff like that, the official podcast account is at WMR Podcast. You can also follow your hosts at RLOT and at NickFTime. Be sure to check out our past episodes on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com, as well as on our YouTube channel and on iTunes. And if you do that, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, leave a comment, leave a rating so that you can help us out to become kings of the hobby section and dethrone the woodworkers. You put up like 4 episodes or something like that on Podbean.
Yeah, I've been behind for episodes, so I'm getting them uploaded. YouTube's going to take a little bit longer, if only because, unfortunately, I've gotten these episodes done, and then immediately I'm just not going to be around for a bit. I have to do some stuff to help out my family, so I'm just going to be away from my PC for a portion of it. I'm going to try to get these up as soon as I can, but they may not be up all at once in the same way it is on Podbean. I think Podbean I have 2 episodes left to put up, and then this episode when it comes out. But YouTube, I think I'd still back to like some episodes from March and then everything, so I'm going to try to upload those as soon as I can.
If you want to send us feedback, ask us questions, submit series for us to read, you can do all that stuff via email. Send it to weeklymangarecap@yahoo.com. Special thanks go out to our Patreon supporters. Your support allows us to create all sorts of fun bonus content for you guys to enjoy, and we really appreciate the help. And lastly, special thanks to Steve Man, our talk artist. You can check out his work in a number of different places, including his own Patreon, and to Infamous Planet for the help that you do. And that's gonna. Oh, I forgot. Favorites. I already named my favorite series. What is your favorite series this week, Chris?
I'll give it to Food Wars.
Food Wars. Okay, for the conclusion of the arc. Awesome. MVP for me is going to be Sekijo. I really like the stuff that we got from her this week. And although we disagree with certain members of the chat of what the implications of this chapter are, I do think it's actually really nice that we got this insight to see what makes her tick. And it was really nice to see the scene of them when they were younger.
Mm-hmm. For mine, I'm gonna give it to. I'm blanking on his name. What's the name of the old guy from Dr. Stone?
Kaseki.
Kaseki. I'm gonna give it to Kaseki because I had no expectation for that sort of scene to hit, and then it fucking did and obliterated me out of nowhere. So, I mean, fuck. I guess I had to give it to that.
Fair enough. All right, that is going to do it for the Manga recap. We will check you guys. We will see you all next week for more, and we're going to have another jump start. What is it freaking called? Kimi wo Shinryakuseo. Don't ask me to repeat that.
Good.
In addition to more Momiji No Kisetsu.
Yes, we will. All right. Goodbye, everybody.